After much speculation, Creative Assembly has announced their next DLC for Total War Warhammer 2, The Curse of the Vampire Coast. A faction of pirates, most vampirical. So if you like sea shanties, crab people, monsters, and muskets, I've got the DLC for you. Alright, enough of that. Let's actually talk about what's in the DLC. I'll be the first person to admit that I did not expect a Pirates DLC. Like most everybody else, I expected Dogs of War. But this is actually way more interesting. A pirate-based faction makes sense on a map that's mainly water, which is what Warhammer 2 offers us. And before you worry that it's just another reskin of the Undead, let's talk about the mechanics of what's being offered. You get 4 new Undead legendary lords, an entire new school of magic, the Lore of the Deep, and a bunch of new campaign mechanics. The most interesting of which is the new upgradable ship for your legendary lord. The Vampire Coast faction will work something like a nomad culture, sailing the high seas for plunder and booty, where most of your infrastructure come from your boats, but you do have the ability to make pirate coves. After a victorious post-settlement battle, the Vampire Coast have the ability to sack or raise a port, but they also may choose to establish a pirate cove in the vicinity. This secret sub-settlement then siphons income back off the main settlements, while you can also upgrade it and do other things with it. And the cove can only be destroyed if the settlement itself is razed. And if you take one from opposing Vampire Coast faction, you get to take it over. It's a nice twist on the idea of the old pirate enclave. And giving the Vampire Coast the ability to upgrade a ship as well as upgrade settlements gives them the best features of both Horde factions and settled factions. In the Eye of the Vortex campaign, they won't be seeking to control the Vortex. You'll actually be competing against other pirate lords to try and become the most infamous pirate of all time. As you win battles, take territory, and establish pirate coves, your infamy will grow among the ranks of your pirate lords and ladies, and this eventually leads to your ultimate victory objective. It sounds very similar to the chivalry system used by Bretonnia. Each lord will have one verse of an ancient shanty, and once you have the entire song, you can make the Star Metal Harpoon, which allows you to embark on your final fateful battle, with your ultimate objective being to bend Ammonar, the great serpent of the deeps, to your will. You can see him as this giant leviathan in the back of the trailer. A being so crazy destructive that with a single sweep of his tail, he scatters entire armies. If it sounds a bit like Disney's Pirates of the Caribbean franchise, that's probably not a coincidence. In fact, there's even hidden pieces of 8 throughout the world that you can collect to be able to buy regiments of renown, and there's treasure maps hidden throughout the world that you can collect after you win battles, and then solve the riddles to figure out where massive treasures are buried. The Vampire Coast will also get access to their own unique rights, which has become pretty standard for Warhammer 2. One gives access to Queen Bess, a giant cannon. Another, the Curse of the Sea Mist, shrouds all your regions with a fog that also causes attrition to your enemies, and grants you vanguard deployment to your monster units. And these monster units will be the core of the Vampire Coast army. Giant crab creatures, huge ship constructs with cannons for arms. Of course, you'll still have zombies, but now they have flintlocks because are pirates. But the coolest addition that comes with this new DLC is a new type of battlefield. Before in Warhammer 2, if 2 ships met on the ocean, you were just forced to auto-resolve it. But now, you can choose to then fight on an island map. So this will also work for Dark Elf battle arcs. Now, if you pay attention to the Warhammer modding scene, you'll notice a mod that does just this was released last week. And CA actually reached out to the developers to tell them they were working on the exact same thing. So if nothing else, it's a case of great minds think alike. Sure, it would have been nice to have seen naval combat in this game, but it's such a big overhaul, I wouldn't expect it from a DLC, but maybe in Warhammer 3. As for who the 4 legendary lords will be, well, we know now that we'll definitely get Harkon, but the good money so far is also in someone named Noctilus, Aranessa Saltspite, and Jago Roth. But we'll have to wait for future announcements to find out that's for sure. And in case you're worried they won't use a pirate accent in the game, just remember that the pirate accent as we know it today comes from a 1950s version of Treasure Island, where the lead actor used a West Country accent with a couple additional R's thrown on the end. The Curse of the Vampire Coast will also release alongside a new rework of the old world faction, the Vampire Counts, and I'll have more details on that when they release. Curse of the Vampire Coast is shaping up to be the DLC that I didn't know I wanted. It adds a lot of fun and character back into the world, and opens the floodgates for future factions that aren't necessarily so grim-dark all the time, like halflings, which have rooster mounts. But hey, a guy can hope. So set your sails and shiver your timbers. This DLC arrives in November.
Sails and incredible tales.